Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another review of some of my most favourite films ever, and this edition we will focus on Martin Scorsese's entertaining gangster epic The Departed. Released on October the 6th, 2006, it has a heavyweight cast starring Leonardo Di Caprio, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, Alec Baldwin, Ray Winston, Martin Sheen, Vera Farmiga, and the great Jack Nicholson, and of course it was directed by acclaimed filmmaker Martin Scorsese. Now it is a remake of the Hong Kong film Internal Affairs, which itself was released in 2002. Now the setup within The Departed is that we focus on notorious gangster Frank Costello, who brings up young kid Colin Sullivan through the ranks and sets him up as a mole within the Boston Police Department. The Boston Police Department themselves, who have been after Frank Costello for many years now, adopt the same strategy by enlisting rookie cop William Costello undercover as one of Frank's gang. Over the course of the story, we follow both Sullivan and Costello struggling to maintain their duplicitous roles under the watch of Costello, who becomes increasingly more suspicious as he notices certain cracks within his operation. Now for me, I love The Departed. I've always found it to be a very immensely entertaining, watchable and just sheer fun of a movie. Yes, we do look at it most as a gangster epic, but there is a huge element of humour and, dare I say, almost comedy throughout the movie, but it never strays too far. It never crosses over that line where it becomes too much of a parody or too much of a slapstick narrative. There is still a serious situation with mixed in elements of both the comedy and humour, and it never underscores the situation that we watch the story in. It has huge passages of suspense and tension as we see the multiple situations that both Sullivan and Costello get into and how they could get caught out, and the multiple risks that they take to make sure that they don't get found out by either Costello or the police. There's a very bright, brisk feeling to the pace of this film, and it's not too dissimilar from what we see a lot from Guy Ritchie's gangster movies, but I think the difference here is that the characters don't quite feel as cartoonish or as caricature as what they do within Guy Ritchie's movies. It's yet again another classy, accomplished movie from acclaimed director Martin Scorsese, who most critics and fans within movie fandom herald as one of the greatest directors of all time, and he finally got recognition for this by the Academy Awards through winning Best Director Oscar for this movie, which really was long overdue when you consider the huge amount and body of his work. And to be honest, many of his films are ingrained in cinematic culture and considered iconic when we look at the likes of Taxi Driver in 1976, Raging Bull in 1980, Goodfellas in 1990 and Casino as well in 1996, and those are just four of the biggest examples of the many exemplary movies that he's produced throughout his career. Now if I'm being perfectly honest, I think The Departed is probably a step down from the most classic movies within Scorsese's career, and I think when he won this Oscar it was really more of an atonement by the Academy Awards for not rewarding Scorsese from those previous movies throughout his career as well. But without doubt about it, Departed is still a very classy movie overall, where we see Martin Scorsese once again applying his expert skills in terms of pacing, editing and energy that he brings so much to his movies throughout his career. I mentioned before the heavyweight cast, and it truly is a great ensemble of accomplished actors that Scorsese has managed to assemble for this movie. In the lead roles, we have Leonardo Di Caprio as William Costello, who is really the supposed protagonist, you could say, throughout the story, and he really is much more of an inexperienced, paranoid and, dare I say, erratic character that we see throughout the story. We sympathise with him as he gets deeper involved within Frank's gang and fearing that he may get killed. We see later on that he makes a connection with Vera Farmiga's character when he's going to therapy and he's taking certain antibiotics to keep himself from getting completely stressed. So we do follow a lot with William's story as well. I think it's another very typically intense, full-on performance from Leonardo DiCaprio, and this is really when he would start to really build consistently throughout his career multiple movies with Martin Scorsese. An even superior performance, I would say, comes from Matt Damon, who I think is one of his best roles, going against type from the typically more good-natured roles that he's played throughout his career. Here, he's far more of a loose, confident and, dare I say, ruthless personality as Sullivan. He very much enjoys his work and he doesn't show that much in terms of remorse. At the end of the day, he has a very pragmatic approach. He does what he does to survive, and he enjoys his ascensions through the FBI ranks and his duplicitous role throughout. And I think it's a great performance from Matt Damon. Like I said, it's very good when you see certain actors play against type, and I think you can really see that Matt Damon has a lot of fun and really enjoys himself within this role. I also like Ray Winston as Mr. French. That is Frank's right-hand man. He's very blunt, typically unassuming, but he's very strong, very threatening, very cutthroat. Yeah, it's those typical kind of hard-nosed gangster roles that Ray Winston has played a lot throughout his career, but I really love his performance over the role, especially the dynamic that he has with Frank Costello throughout the movie. I love the combination and the interplay both between those two actors. It's very great as well throughout. Another great performance is of course from Mark Wahlberg as the very salty, sarcastic Sergeant Sean Dignam. It's very much of that typical shouty, abrasive style that we've known to become from Mark Wahlberg ever since he's really become much more of a serious actor, but still he generates a lot of laughs and comedy and humour. Again, I love the great interplay that he has with Alec Baldwin as well, and it's a very good performance from Mark Wahlberg, and it adds a lot to the entertainment value of the film, and he got a very well deserved Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He plays very well alongside Martin Sheen, who is a superior officer, Charlie Queenan. He's a far more relaxed and calmer personality, and he looks to be a lot more supportive towards Castigan in his operational role overall. And I mentioned before, Alec Baldwin is yet another standout as a top FBI Captain George Ellaby. He's very witty, very quick, very sharp, lots of humour. I love again the interplay that he has with Mark Wahlberg, as I mentioned before. Lots of little quips, and again it just adds that very comedic style of the film overall, and I think it's a great performance from Alec Baldwin as well. As the main female interest, Vera Farmiga is very good as the psychiatrist for cops, and we see her really striking close relationships at first with Sullivan, and then later on as we progress into the story with Costigan as well, and she becomes much more vulnerable throughout the movie and is very unaware of the duplicitous roles that are being played by the both men that she gets involved with. And I think she's one of those women that, okay, she analyses a lot of very difficult characters in her job, and I think she's attracted a lot more to the bad men, and I think that's why we see her get involved in both men throughout this movie. So a very good role for the main female lead. Now, for all of the great cast performances throughout this movie, of course the most biggest and most significant performance in this film for me certainly is of course that one from the great Jack Nicholson as Frank. And Nicholson is just amazing as usual. He brings so much of the humour, the tension, as we see he really has both Costigan and Sullivan under his guise and control. We get so many scenes when they are literally, really twitching themselves over seeing how Frank will react to certain scenarios and situations, and it's fantastic to watch. Again, it brings such of the danger and the peril, because if you watch this particularly for the first time, you're really not sure which way Frank is going to go, who he suspects, who he doesn't. He's somebody who is very charismatic, but he's not afraid to really be as ruthless and exhibit lots of violence when it feels it's most necessary, and that's what adds so much to this film overall. And I think Jack Nicholson is phenomenal in this movie, and he's really given free reign throughout this movie, and I think that's the best way to handle actors like Jack Nicholson, and he is really one of those all-time legendary screen actors. I put him right up there with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, actors who you need to give them that open canvas, if you like, so they can really exhibit themselves and really transcend their massive screen aura to the audience. And that's what's so great about Jack Nicholson throughout this movie. He really elevates the film so much. Any film that he's involved in, whether it's an average script, doesn't matter, as long as you've got Jack Nicholson in there, he's really got that screen chemistry that makes you want to watch him. You go through his career and there's so many memorable films and performances. When we look at the likes of Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he's brilliant in that film. Of course, the Stephen King horror film The Shining, himself playing the devil in Witches of Eastwick, and I think he's got a similar very role in this movie as well. And of course his iconic portrayal as the Joker in Batman in 1989. So he's got so many roles throughout where he's produced such iconic and amazing performances, and here in this film he really is everything. He is very imposing, he's funny, he's menacing, and I think it would actually be a lesser film if you didn't have Jack Nicholson in it. Despite the great performances of all the other cast members, it definitely is a greater film because of Jack Nicholson's involvement. And I think we noticed that particularly as we veer toward the climax of the film, where we see later on when we involved much more in Sullivan and Costigan, when Jack Nicholson isn't there as such involved in the main events of the movie. The film does slow down a bit in terms of its intensity and suspense overall, but I would still maintain that Departed is very much of an accessible and very entertaining and a very funny gangster movie overall. So if I had to give a score for The Departed, I would give it an 8.6 out of 10. Now when we look at the release of The Departed, on a budget of 90 million, it managed to gross over 291.5 million at the box office. So obviously that's a very big and massive financial success, particularly when we talk about the gangster genre, which I suppose at this stage was really phased out, when we were talking much more about a shift into the more CGI blockbuster and high concept action films. The gangster movies really hadn't been as prominent as what they were throughout the 80s and the 90s. Particularly, we could say that Martin Scorsese was one of the pioneers in making the gangster movies appealing to mainstream box office audiences. So I think one of the major reasons why Departed was such a box office success was due to the high caliber cast of actors who for the most part are all well known and all well liked throughout their careers. So when you manage to assemble a massive caliber of actors, it already gives that impression that you are in for a high quality movie overall, and The Departed has definitely justified that. So that's why I feel drew a lot of audiences to this movie. And to be honest, any new gangster movie from Martin Scorsese will always generate a lot of hype and buzz, considered his previous classics as I mentioned before. And Martin Scorsese himself, he really is one of those high profile A-list directors. He's a director that really can sell a movie on his name alone. We put him alongside the likes of course, the greatest director of all time, Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. Those are your A-list directors, if you like, the superstar directors that you will always get excited about whenever there's a new movie coming from them. So especially a new gangster movie, especially with the high caliber actors involved, was always going to get a lot of attention. And overall, Departed, as well as commercially, it did its job critically, because as well as Martin Scorsese winning the Best Director Oscar, it also won for Best Picture, and it got Oscars as well for editing and screenplay as well. So I think it was overall well deserved. A really magnificent, classy, accomplished and very funny, enjoyable gangster movie. You know, I just love this film so much. It's one of those films you can watch endlessly again and again and again, even though you know what happens. And it's just the thrill of seeing such a high quality cast of actors all playing off one another, and you can clearly tell that they had a lot of fun making this movie as well. So if the actors are going to have fun making the movie and acting in it, then you as a viewer are going to be enjoyable watching it as well. And I think that's what's great about The Departed overall. So just a great movie, fun movie that I could watch again and again, and definitely one of the great movies that I've seen within my lifetime, and I think overall you would enjoy it as well if you have yet to see it. So those are my thoughts and feelings on The Departed. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've seen the movie, how do you think it ranks above the great movies of Martin Scorsese's career? What did you think about Jack Nicholson's performance in particular? Do you think it's one of the standout performances of his own career? How did you think both Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon fared as well throughout this movie? If you have yet to see The Departed, then I really recommend that you should, and if you do, then by all means come to this video and let me know what you thought about the movie as well. Give me your thoughts and feelings within the comments as well. Please also hit those like and subscription and notification buttons so I can help continue to grow more content and provide you with more high quality reviews like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves on a very highly entertaining gangster epic in The Departed. Stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.